Let's try this one again. Hello, dear people, big and small. This is your crazy Auntie Frida, and this is my white wall in Iceland. Please do imagine Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls and so forth poster on it. I didn't find any, sorry, but today you have to use your imagination because I got an interesting question, which is, do you have any 90s stuff in your closet? Oh no, Watson, we got a problem, because I don't know what 90s stuff is exactly. The other day also someone on this channel asked me how old I was, so maybe this is the answer. I was born in 1981. That means I lived through almost all of the 80s. I gained conscience like every person at about 3-4 years of age. So I might have noticed historical events from like 1984-5 on. I saw the fall of the Berlin Wall on TV. Yes. Other than that, I kind of always lived in my own world. But I thought I might use the journey through my closet also as a reflection on what the 90s meant to me. Of course, I have relatives in the east of Germany, so the falling of the wall in 1990 meant that I could visit them, I could really get to know them. I could actually also get to know a very different lifestyle. Maybe that's another story for the future. And actually, I'm really glad to have seen how, let's say, Europe has grown together. I'm optimistic about that, at least, that we can always meet people on a totally new basis. One of the first pop rock songs that I consciously heard on the radio in elementary school was Wind of Change, and I think there is a reason for that. But yeah, let's say, other than that, I always lived in my own little world. And actually, the kids at school didn't think I was cool because I was wearing hand-me-downs, and I was actually not bothering how the hand-me-downs looked. Rather about their practical use, because I was falling to the ground a lot and I wanted them to last even when they got dirty. Still, especially now since I'm watching vintage TV shows a lot, I have an idea of what adults may have liked in the 90s. So let's solve a knot in my life, and let's solve a knot in my scarf number 1. Zebra looks. That has a hole in the middle, by the way. I just don't get it over the hat. Next scarf. I like the flowers. I like the daffodils. Yeah, that's a song that we sang a lot at school. Don't ask me why, but it was fun because we always made a dance to it. Yeah, dolphins seem to be a big thing in the 90s, and actually in the 90s I also started going to flea markets with my late father and buying such ethno stuff. This looks like a scarf, but it's actually a set of trousers. For ethno stuff, you also need like ethno accessories, like this little bag. So, and now, to me, the 1990s were also a decade of caps, probably because I figured out that I needed something that I found cool and something that would be of good use because I'm so light oversensitive. So yes, this is an original 1990s cap when my back then little sister tried to be really fancy. And actually, it's a really good brand, but we're not advertising brands. This actually, I didn't believe it was 90s in the beginning, but then I found a label in it that I otherwise only know from a vintage TV show that mentioned 1990s fashion, and the label came off, and we're not advertising brands anyway, but I put that into my album of old nice things. Oops, here, also in my closet. Yes, I have had reddish hair ever since the 90s. In the 80s, they still were like really bright red. Okay, here we have to cover a logo. And this is actually my favorite because, let's say, my dad worked in advertising for the radio, so he always brought us a lot of merchandise. And this is actually the first cap with which I really tried to look cool and show I was a rocker. Ethno stuff episode whatsoever. That's a blouse. This is actually one of the first long dresses that I was given by someone, and one of the last gifts that I was given in the 1990s. Jacket with tigers embossed in the sides and in the back. And a brown jacket matching this hat. And a long arm t-shirt. And a flower dress. And yeah, this is my my clothing world of how I interpret the 90s looking back. But I would also say it was a lot of a time of introspection, because this was basically the time of puberty. Like, I still remember that my elementary school teacher wrote my parents a letter, Happy New Decade, when 1989 became 1990. And that's, of course, sort of when it started, when children started defining what was cool and what was uncool. And let's say in elementary school, I was kind of always well integrated. I mean, I always was different, but let's say I still experience children as more uncomplicated than teenagers and adults. So it was a really good community at elementary school, or at least I thought so. Then moving on to middle school, that is actually combined with high school, according to the German system, was very difficult. I had many difficulties in 1992 to make friends there. I ran into one of my former schoolmates like just recently, and we found out as adults, and looking back, we are maybe not that different at all, but let's say as teenagers or like about to become teenagers, it's like this huge issue. And MMM, of course, from all the M, you might figure that it sometimes is difficult to express. I figured out some things in the 90s, where I just figure out the effects nowadays, because it was the time of finding out what worked for me. Like in the end of the 90s, I went to Canada for a student exchange year where the school had a totally different structure and where people were especially like encouraged to have goals at a very young age. And like they also had to make career decisions younger than the Germans who I knew. So I actually managed to set down goals and structure my day around them for the first time in my life. Even though like some of the goals were also like of a spiritual nature that doesn't work for me anymore today, but it was still part of my life and maybe still has an influence on me, at least the influence that I'm thankful for my life and thankful for having friends and ideas. And for instance, I'm thankful for the structure of the school, that it started later in the day and also ended later in the day, and that the lessons were actually rotating. So I was never doing maths for one entire year, but maths for 3 months and then something different. And this is actually something that really rings a bell for my search to still establish myself on the working market with a disability. I need timely limited projects and need to put my full energy into them. And talking about timely limited projects, I think my time is up here, and I'm looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you soon. And please ask questions and bring me ideas for stories to tell on this channel. Bye!